Good evening, everyone. My name is Bishop Joan Whitaker, and we're here coming to you live from Horak Ministries located in Ossining, New York. This is a very, very special occasion, a special presentation or broadcast regarding the virus, the vaccine, whether or not you should take the vaccine. It's time to kind of let you know what's going on, and we're gonna be asking the panelists to come on in a couple minutes, and they're gonna be sharing with you information concerning the vaccine. We know that there's just so much stories going around, conspiracy stories concerning the vaccine. And me, as an African American person, Jamaican origin, I get them just about every day. And some of my own people, we are somewhat reluctant. And of course, we have a right to do what we want to do, but it's good to have information. Also, as a professional librarian, I was taught from my early days that we need to make sure that information is authentic and that is correct. Just because it's published or is printed or recorded does not mean that the information is correct. So make sure that whatever you are reading, whatever you're listening to, it's information that we describe as authoritative. Before we open up, I'm just going to ask you to join me in prayer everywhere. And remember to share this with everyone on this platform that we're in. Feel free, if you're on Facebook, just to share it with your friends and your colleagues. It's an information session. Welcome again. Please bow your heads with me everywhere. Let's pray right now. Father, in the name of Jesus, we come before your presence this evening. We thank you for the opportunity that we can come together in this occasion to share information. We ask you now for your leadership, for your guidance, for your direction, and we pray that we will leave informed and we'll leave knowing that what we're doing the correct thing. I pray for your blessings right now. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Let me introduce our panelists. Welcome, 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 Tulio Bruno. If you're in Ossining, most of you are acquainted with Tulio. He's the founder of Health Smart Pharmacy in Ossining, and he's doing a tremendous, tremendous job in the community of Ossining. And Tulio will talk about what he's doing a little bit later on. He will provide with more information. And then we have Roger Bhattacharya. I hope I pronounced it correctly, Roger Bhattacharya. Right. Roger, I noticed I saw a sign on the lawn down the hill from me that you're running for the school board in Ossining. All right. I'm just putting that out there. And so Roger is from Regeneron, and Roger is going to be sharing information as well in terms of his role there and his role in the community. And then we have Terry Lukin, and Terry works with the NAACP. And also she's a nurse practitioner, and she's going to be sharing information in terms of what she does. At this time, without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to them in that order. Tulio first, and then Roger, and then Terry, and then we'll move on from there. We have a couple of videos that we'd like to share as well. And remember, in your chat, we need to have your questions in the chat. We want to make this informative, we want to make this exciting, and we want to make sure that at the end of this program you have a little bit more information than you had. All right, so if you can put your hands together. I know I can't see you out there, but just welcome these three panelists. These people are making a difference in our communities, and let's talk about the vaccine. All right, so the first one is Tulio. So Tulio, take it away. If you can unmute and just take about 5 minutes or so to talk about what you're doing.
No problem. So, well, first thing is I'd like to talk about what is a vaccine and the purpose of the vaccine. So the first thing today, we're talking about COVID-19 vaccine. So the first question is what is a vaccine? And a vaccine basically is a small part or bit of a virus, a bacteria, or some sort of organism that's been activated, or just parts of it, so it's not going to necessarily infect the patient, to initiate an immune response from a patient. So basically, it's a small amount of what we would say are the good parts or the bad parts of the vaccine, so that your body will see that type of bacteria or virus and learn how to beat it, so that this way, when you come in contact with the actual virus itself, that there isn't an illness or a severe illness. So basically, the goal of vaccination is to decrease the incidence of the virus in the community. And by basically getting the vaccine, we may not totally prevent the illness, but we can decrease the length or duration of your illness and the severity of your illness. And basically what we're trying to do is to get a large amount of people to get the vaccine so that this way we can decrease the passing or the spreading throughout our particular community. So the object is to get a vaccine in every single individual and produce that immunological response so that this way everybody who's been in contact with it is somewhat protected. Then when we meet up with other individuals, if they were to have the actual live virus, that we won't necessarily have as bad a response, or we won't necessarily spread it to another individual. So basically, just like the flu, every year we get a flu vaccine. In this particular year, we already got our flu vaccines, but now we're trying to get everybody with a COVID vaccine. And now there are 3 versions of the vaccine that are out and about. In my particular pharmacy, we have a product which is called Moderna. The Moderna vaccine comes on day 0, meaning you get 1 dose on day 0. And 28 days later, you're to get the second vaccination, which, by the way, is the same exact dose as the first vaccination. So basically, it's 2 doses of the same exact shot over a 28-day period. That 28-day period in our particular store is not a locked-in 28th day. You can get it anywhere from 24 days to 42 days. So we receive vaccine every week from the state. And when we receive the vaccine arrives and we schedule our first vaccine, and then we schedule the second dose for a second dose appointment. Sometimes the state is delayed in releasing the vaccine. So the vaccine may not necessarily arrive on that magical day 28. So the first set of second doses we received arrived on day 30. So it made everybody extremely nervous because we had always mentioned see you in 4 weeks for the second dose. And in reality, we were already missing that 4-week deadline. So now I'm always emphatic to say that we'll contact the patient for the 4th week dose, but we won't necessarily schedule it for that 28th day unless we know for sure that we get the vaccine on that particular week, which is different. And believe it or not, there was a snowstorm in Texas, and the snowstorm in Texas delayed the vaccine delivery in New York. So isn't that interesting? So all of our vaccines get shipped out of Kentucky. So going through, I guess, Kentucky or going through Texas was the problem that delayed everything in the whole East Coast for the vaccine. The Pfizer vaccine is on a 21-day cycle. So that's day 0 is the day you first receive the vaccine, and you need to get that second dose on or about day 21. And usually there's a 4-day cushion, or actually up to a 40, you can do it 4 days early. In the 21-day dose, I think it's 3 days early. So the 28th day dose, we can do it anywhere from day 24 to day 42. And if you had visited the doctor, the emergency room, or the hospital, and you got COVID in between getting your first and your second dose, that second dose can be delayed even further, even up to 6 months later, depending on what the story is, in case there are other things that were given to you when you were in the hospital, or vaccines or illnesses. Let's say you had some cortisone or steroid shots, or you had a hospital admission where they gave you plasma. The plasma delays the vaccine dose by 90 days. So in reality, if you've gotten the vaccine and the vaccine was given to you in that first week, potentially if you got COVID and you were hospitalized or you got the plasma product would delay your vaccine treatment for 90 days. So we'd get you the second dose upon passing that 90-day period. And the new vaccine, which is by Johnson & Johnson, is a 1-dose shot, which we haven't dispensed yet. I haven't received it as of yet. It has a different style or different mechanism of action, but it's the same sort of story with any vaccine. A little bit of the vaccine is administered to the patient to produce that immunological response, and that response is protective in nature. let's see here. I think that's about it for right now.
All right, great, great. Thank you, Tulio. All right, so let's move on. We're going to pause now to answer the question, what exactly is COVID-19 and how does it affect us? And we have a video that we're going to be playing, so I'm going to hand over to Roger to do that for us. And then Roger will come back after that to talk a little bit more about his work that he's doing. All right, so Roger, do you have that?
Yeah,
So
actually,
let's
Kay, do you want to roll the video on your part there and we can get that going? I'll try to narrate as best as possible so people can follow along. If it does create any kind of trouble with hearing it, I'll certainly cover some of the points about COVID-19 right afterwards. So Kay, do you want to roll it?
Yes, it's gonna roll right now.
Kay, I don't think there's any sound piping over the. So this is dedicated to about 550,000 family members who've lost their loved ones through COVID-19. I'll just narrate right over this. But you should know that coronavirus, it's transmitted through respiratory droplets. That's from breathing out or being near anybody that you're talking to. The virus itself, it enters in through your nose predominantly. That is the place it starts off. And as it gets into your system, the spikes on the coronavirus, it attaches itself to the cells and it injects its genetic materials and it starts to replicate the virus within your cells. And then this is part of what you call the incubation process, where the coronavirus continues to replicate itself. Once it's done that with one of your cells, it goes over and repeats the process across the other cells, which is part of this incubation stage of the coronavirus. As the virus replicates, it exits the cell, and as it exits the cell, it causes that cell to die. It's created a condition where it's now that cell's been hijacked. So once the virus it gets into your nose, it takes over what's called the olfactory glands, which is where you smell and taste. And that's where you'll start to lose that sense of smell and taste initially. And once it's incubated there, it goes through the replication process throughout the body. And it will go into your various organs. It'll travel through your vascular systems, through all of your arteries and veins. That's where it'll start off. So when we think about the coronavirus, it attaches itself to the walls of your artery. And this is where you'll have this inflammation and it'll create this leaky vessel response. This here, you're seeing here that the coronavirus itself, as it attaches to your blood vessels, it'll actually start to affect the function of your blood vessel, especially by your lungs, where there's the oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. And as it continues to do so, it'll cause a leakage of what's called a thick gel into your lungs. Think palmolive like gel. It's a very thick gel, which is why you can't excrete it as quickly. And when you get these symptoms of COVID-19, you'll feel like fever, chills, cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headaches, sore throat, nausea, vomiting. You'll get other symptoms like trouble breathing, persistent pain in the chest, confusion, inability to stay awake, or even discoloration of your skin or nails. And by the time that your immune system is able to respond, it is too late. And this is when a ventilator is required at that point in time. If you have any kind of pre-existing conditions, COVID-19 will be lethal for you, or it could be lethal for you. Some of these pre-existing conditions include cancer, chronic kidney disease, COPD, Down syndrome, heart conditions, weakened immune system, obesity, severe obesity, and even type 2 diabetes, as well as sickle cell disease. Other factors that are included in this will be asthma. There'll be cerebrovascular disease, cystic fibrosis, hypertension, if you're immunocompromised, you have any kind of neurological conditions, liver disease, or you are overweight, or you have pulmonary fibrosis. This will be other factors that could affect your well-being when you get coronavirus. So messages, stay safe, protect yourself. When you're around others, make sure that you have a mask over both your nose and mouth. That is so important. Your body does, it does not have the antibodies right now to protect itself against coronavirus because it is new. That's why it's called novel coronavirus. Make sure that you use the vaccine to help get yourself that message to help fight against this dreaded disease. It is so important because your body just doesn't recognize it at this point. So together, we'll win this war on COVID, but the vaccines are absolutely important. So I leave you with this message. Thank you, and God bless you. I think that your families are worth it. You are worth it. It is absolutely critical. So the message that you need to know about this is that because of the fact that this is new, when something is new in terms of a disease and your body has never seen it before, your body now has to figure out what to do with it. And by the time it's actually done all of its ravaging throughout your body, including leaky vessels, so you could have even hemorrhaging near any of your vital organs. You could have weakened heart muscles. You could have weakened spleen, weakened liver. And so while it might just be like a cough that you feel, but it's doing damage in other places. There are things that you may have heard of called COVID long haulers. These are people who have seen far greater symptoms that last them longer periods of time. So it is absolutely critical that even if you are young and you think, it's not going to affect me as much because I'm young, I'm at 21, maybe it won't. But you know what? The person that you live in with that household may be affected. And you might be affected too, but you don't want to spread it around. This is one of those diseases that you want to keep out of your family, out of your life. We want to get rid of this disease. It is absolutely important. This is a disease that's almost designed to kind of come in contact with our cells. So think about it as like it's got those spikes on there and it wants to attach onto your cells. It's a perfect lock and key mechanism that attaches on very easily. And because of the variation, so when you hear that the coronavirus has mutated, essentially it's become stronger. It went from its weaker state of what it was to now a much stronger state. So by the fact that it's stronger, and every person that that virus hosts, it starts to build on a little bit more of a strength in that and more virility in that. So that means that it's more effective in what it's able to do. So it starts to host itself in a better way into your body and starts to create that damage. So because your body doesn't see it, when you do get a vaccine, what the vaccine is doing, it's called an mRNA, at least two of them are what they're mRNA. So think about it as like an instruction book in terms of how to fight this war, because your body doesn't know what to do with it yet. And by the time it's done its damage, it has no instruction. And now all of a sudden you get this vaccine and now now your body's being told, when I see something that looks anything like this, I'm going to develop antibodies and create an antibody immune response so that I'm going to send the army after to go fight this virus and know how to tackle it. That is exactly what you should know. And that's what you should take away from this. This is not something that's going to change your DNA. It's not a microchip that's being put in to track you by the government. That's not what this is. And it's not going to come in contact with our cells. So think about it as like it's got the spikes on there and it wants to attach onto your cells. It's a perfect. So that's the thing that I want you to take away from this. And if you have any questions, please put them into the chat, and I'm sure one of us will be happy to answer that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great, Roger. Great video, very informative. Can you just talk about yourself a little bit in terms of what you're doing in the community to educate the community and so on? Just talk about yourself for a few minutes.
Sure. So thank you, Bishop Whitaker. I think one of the things you had prefaced with, so I work for Regeneron. We are a large a Westchester-based science biotech company. Our job is around trying to use the science to determine how do we fight a lot of these illnesses that affect us. And I think what's important here is making sure that our community members are aware, not so much about, hey, just take the vaccine because it's just take a vaccine, but also a little bit of education. So a part of this is talking to people around what their concerns and their fears are, and making sure that people understand that. Now, there's a lot of misinformation out there through social media, and people believe some of the information that's out there. And people talk to one another based upon what they believe and what they're frightened by. But I think the thing that you should be frightened by as somebody who may have some sort of trepidation is the fact of what this disease can do to you. It's not just the fact it's some virus that'll come and go. It's a virus that'll create conditions in your body that will create effect, that will create hemorrhaging. It'll create, if it gets to your blood-brain barrier between your brain and the rest of your body, it could create even like other types of things like brain fog. There have been symptoms that have been noted, such as clinical depression. So we want to build this awareness. And so I've been helping to try to build this awareness. And that goes across the community, but more so because within the Black and Brown community, I speak in Spanish too, but I will tell you that within the Black and Brown community, they're disproportionately affected by this because of the fact that there hasn't been a lot out there to help to treat and create any kind of a cure for this, but not that we have a cure, but a defense mechanism to help to stave off this virus. We're in a war against an invisible enemy. COVID is an invisible enemy. You are loved. You should love your family. This is one way to show that love. And I think it's important that you understand you need to be able to train your body to be able to recognize it. That is what's important. This is a virus that came from animals that jumped into the human into the human species, and it's mutated, and it's mutated again within humans. So we need to be able to educate you to know that if you don't do something about this now, you become that petri dish for that next mutation, which is what you don't want to become.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Okay, we're gonna move on to Terry. Terry, just take about 5 minutes or so to talk about yourself and what you're doing in the community and so on.
Sure. I'm a nurse practitioner, and in my day job, I work for a corporation where I manage the COVID pandemic. So we have 14 TV stations across the country, and we've had hundreds of people who've gotten COVID. So I walk the COVID walk with them. I advise them. I'm on the phone with them. And then I do I'm a certified contact tracer. So I contact trace, I isolation, I quarantine, and I help our company develop all of our policies. The other hat I wear, and the hat I bring to you today, is I am a volunteer and a member of the executive committee of the Ossining NAACP. And I was elected to chair the health committee, and the NAACP Health Game Changer is all about health equity and health outcomes. So I've been speaking in the community to our members, to the village of Ossining, and to you people today. And I really thank you very much, Bishop Whitaker, for this opportunity. Wow, we had such great speakers, right? Tulio and Roger really hit so many of the high points. So I guess what's it called? The guy at the end who's corralling everything in. So I'll talk a little bit more as a nurse practitioner, and I'll just fill in some of the things that weren't said yet. Roger talked so eloquently about how serious COVID can be. But we do know that COVID can also be asymptomatic, and a quarter to maybe even as much as 30% of people with COVID never know they have it. So that's why our protocols that keep us safe are very important and are going to stay important for a little while, even with the vaccine. So masking is very important over your mouth and nose, tightly fitting, a nose bridge if you can, under the chin, and social distancing, which is pretty much just an arm's length. Although the virus is transmitted by respiratory droplets, it's not what we call airborne like the measles. It doesn't stay in the air for a really long time. So you do often need to be near someone. So if you're protected, if you have your mask on, you're going to protect yourself. A study was done that people who catch COVID through a mask, because it's a more moist environment, don't get as sick with it. So masks and social distancing will remain important. The vaccine, however, is really the tool we have to end this pandemic. And I'd like to just come to you sort of as a nurse, because with regard to the African-American community, they've been disproportionately affected by COVID. More African-Americans get sick with COVID, partially because of their jobs, because of they don't have the opportunity to take off take off days from work. And when they do get sick with COVID, they tend to get sicker, are hospitalized more, and die. But even mildly ill people can go on to develop long COVID. And long COVID can happen a month later, 2 months later, and it can be anything from brain fog to difficulty breathing, cough, body aches, muscle aches. So one of the things they found, a new study has shown that the vaccine actually helps people who have symptoms of long COVID. We don't quite know why, and it's certainly not a cure for it, but we've seen some positive results. So I will say that people are skeptical about vaccines, and the African-American community is especially skeptical, and for really good reason. I mean, structural racism has really affected all of us so profoundly, but African-American family members often are more concerned about it because there's a mistrust of the medical system. And that mistrust is sort of righteous. No, we all know Tuskegee. We've all heard of the eugenic studies on females. So it is okay to be skeptical. So what I really ask everyone to do is say, what do you need to learn about the virus and the vaccine? And how do you need to learn it? I'm more than happy to put my email in the chat. I'm happy to speak with anyone about it. It is what we call a risk-benefit ratio. And the risk of COVID, yeah, you may be able to skate through pretty well, but you may die. And the benefit of the vaccine is just really outweighs the risk. And I do want to assure you that the vaccine was tested on a very diverse group of people. 12% of people were African American for the Moderna trials, 11% for the Pfizer trials, which is pretty close to the percentage in the population. Johnson & Johnson, because they did a lot of their testing in Brazil, was 20% African American and 40% Latino. So this is a vaccine that was not like tested on someone else and brought to people of color. The other thing I'd like to say, and I promise after that to end and answer questions, is the African American community's representation in medical research and science has almost been erased. We don't hear about all the African American scientists. There's an amazing woman, her name is Kamekia Corbett. And if you want to Google her, she's one of the virologists that developed the COVID-19 vaccine. And she speaks so eloquently. So she's someone to listen to. I learned a really interesting story about, we were talking about vaccinations in general. And most people have heard of Jonas Salk. He did the polio vaccine, but very few people have heard of Onesimus. And Onesimus was a slave of Cotton Mather's. And he brought an African technique called variolation, which was an early precursor of vaccination, to America when we were vaccinating against smallpox. So this is not like voodoo science that's being brought to us. African Americans brought variolation and immunization to America. It came from China and Africa. So the vaccine is safe. There are some side effects. You feel a little junky afterwards. I actually got my second vaccine yesterday and my arm's a little sore. And I had a little bit of a headache this morning, but other than that, I'm doing fine. So I think I'll hand it back to Bishop Whitaker. I can talk on this for a really long time, but just encourage you to do it for yourself, to do it for the people you love, and to do it to end this miserable pandemic so that we can move on with our lives. So definitely talk to your doctor, read up, get good information, because as Roger said, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So, we're here to help answer all of your questions so that you can feel comfortable moving forward.
All right. Thank you so much, Terry. Wonderful, wonderful. We're moving along. I would like to introduce to you one of our church members at Horak Ministries, a young lady, beautiful, talented, gifted nurse. Her name is Candice. And Candice developed a video. She was one of the first nurses, I believe, in the area to receive the vaccine. And we are going to ask Minister K right now. I'm not sure if Pastor Brian is there to play a video that was developed by Candice.
For a minute, 50.
Candice Johnson. I am a clinical nurse on 5 North at Phelps Hospital, Northwell Health, and my specialty is med-surg, but for the past 8 months, I've been on the COVID unit, and I am truly thrilled to get the vaccine. I feel it's the beginning of the end.
You ready, Candice? Give me a thumbs up.
This is the beginning of the end. That's exactly what it means to me. When I got it, I just felt relief, and I felt brave, because I'm one of the first people to get it, and I'm actually very blessed to be one of the first people to get it. I realized that there's science behind this vaccine, and I actually trust that. So as a healthcare professional, I felt it was my duty to make a good example for others to follow. So getting the vaccine actually makes me feel more confident in coming to work. I feel that I'm a little more protected. I mean, I trust my PPE, but just having the vaccine already in my system working, I'm gonna get my next dose in a couple weeks, and I just feel a little more safer. For those hesitant on getting the vaccine, I would say, think about which is worse. If you didn't get the vaccine and you contracted COVID and gave it to a family member, would that be worse? And for me, it is worse than to get the vaccine. Maybe you have a fever or something mild side effect, and hopefully no side effects, because I myself had none, thank God. But I would say, weigh it out. Really think about it. What would be worse? And for me, this is so much more of a better option.
All right. So we are back. That was
All right.
that was Candice, as Bishop said.
Yes.
Okay, there.
That was Candice, and that was our interview with USA Today. Very brilliant young woman, and she spoke about her experience taking the vaccine, and I am inspired by that. All right, and I hope that you're inspired as well. So she's a very forward-thinking young woman who cares about her community, and she's doing the best she can to share the word, and that's a good thing. All right, we have some questions as well, and I'm going to ask Kay if she want to chime in with any questions. Let me read a couple of the questions we have here, and maybe Terry could answer this one. All right, Terry, I think you answered this partly, but why are people so hesitant to get the vaccine? And can you just talk about that? As you talk to people in the community, why are they so hesitant in getting the vaccine?
I think a lot of it has to do with not having complete information. Social media just bombards us with people's opinions disguised as fact. And it's very hard to know what to believe. That's why you really want to go to trusted sources like your healthcare provider or the CDC and really read the science. One thing that got people very concerned about the vaccine was how quickly it came to market. I'll have to say that former President Trump calling it Operation Warp Speed probably did not do it a benefit because people thought it was rushed. But no steps were skipped. Every phase of the clinical trials were done. And the reason it came to market so quickly was a few reasons. One is because there were no shortage of volunteers. Usually it takes a while to get enough people in clinical trials to test a new medication or vaccine. Mm-hmm. COVID kills one person every 30 seconds in this country. So people were flocking to the trials. The other thing is that the government allowed the vaccine to be produced before it was approved. And it hasn't been approved, it's authorized. So before it was authorized, it was already in production, which really sped things up. So if the speed scares you, here's two really good reasons why not to worry. Some people also worry that the messenger RNA vaccines are going to mess with your DNA because it's a genetic vaccine. But really all it is sort of like a cookbook. It goes into your body and it creates spike proteins on your cells so that when COVID, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, comes into your body, you've seen it already. You've built an antibody response. But that messenger RNA sits on your cell wall. It doesn't get into the nucleus of your cell where your DNA is, where your genetic material is. So the RNA and the DNA never touch each other. It does not mess with your cells. People also worry sometimes that it hasn't been tested on kids. Well, it's being tested on kids now. 12 to 15 is probably going to be approved in a few months. They're going down to 6 months. So the reason they didn't test it on children was just so that they would get it right with adults first, and they're moving it to kids. So there's a lot of good reasons for the hesitancy, but I found that if you talk to people in the know, they can usually help you understand that the benefit far outweighs the risk.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. Great answer. This one is for Tulio. Tulio, question. Is it far-fetched to believe that the vaccine could possibly trigger an immune response in the future, such as arthritis, MS, lupus, and so on?
Well, I don't believe it's far-fetched because I believe that anything's a possibility. But in reality, because the immunization is so focused that it is a messenger RNA and it is a specific protein that we're looking to treat, that in reality, the chances of that is very, very small. Mm-hmm. The other issue is just like a flu vaccine, where you have to get it every year to keep your immunity or maintain your immunity, depending on what the illness is. This vaccine, we're not sure it's going to be good for, let's say, a lifetime, but it's certainly going to be good for, let's say, the next 3 months, 8 months, 12 months, et cetera. So it's possible to think of this vaccine similar to the flu vaccine, in that maybe we're going to have to get it every year or some sort of scenario like that. So first, the virus is very specific, or the vaccine is very specific. It's not broad. And second of all, the immunization only lasts for such a long time. So it's not like that microchip that everybody says is inserted in you with this vaccine. It is not the case. And on a side note, specific numbers, okay? In my pharmacy, I've told Roger before that we vaccinated over 1,000 people. But I will tell you that 10% of that was Black patients, and only 10% of that was Hispanic patients. And my pharmacy is in the village, where we've got a tremendous mix of the population. So in reality, communication and education has got to be the cure for this particular illness.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Very good. And Kay, I know you're in the background, but you can help with the questions as well if you want to look at them in the chat, and just retrieve a few of them so we can get those in as well. All right, let me see. There's another one here. Okay, I see that one. How is the current vaccine faring against the COVID variants? That's a very good question. And anyone can answer that.
One of the reasons, I'll just start by saying, one of the reasons we want to vaccinate as broadly and as globally as possible is to stop the ability for the virus to mutate and create variants. Right now, it's found to be very effective against B117, which is the UK variant, a little bit less so with the Brazilian variant and with the South African variant. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine was tested extensively in Brazil, and that's one of the reasons its efficacy is a little bit lower. The numbers aren't as good. But one of the cool things about messenger RNA is all you have to do is change the recipe to hit a variant. So it's sort of like if your cake doesn't taste good with one egg, you put in a second egg, and that'll make it lighter and fluffier. So it only takes about 90 days to change the recipe to cover for the variants. That's probably why we'll need vaccines over time. It's not going to be a one and done and a two and done. But the more we vaccinate, the less we allow the virus to have places to mutate.
Yeah, I want to add to that as well. So I think one thing that people are really being very concerned about is that there's this mRNA. They don't know what that means. Just as Terry mentioned, this is like a cookbook. If you think about where we were about 15, 20 years ago to where we are today, technology has changed rapidly. Think about it now. We can now sequence DNA within minutes now to be able to look at what is the genetic structure and makeup of a particular type of cell or organism or even a virus for that matter, and be able to identify areas where that particular virus could be weak. And particularly when there's variations of this, which will continue to create variations for as long as people are allowing the virus to become, it hosts itself in your body, because that's just the way the viruses behave. And if you are thinking in terms of what mRNA is and what it isn't. And think about it this way. It is a way to really provide instructions of when it sees something that has that particular spike protein that enters your body. It's basically telling your immune system, your antibodies, basically, when you see this, this is what you attack, and this is what you attach onto just to disable that virus. So, that is what's critical. So when this virus, it usually makes mutation, doesn't mutate like many ways in one form, but it will continue to mutate. It'll have at least one mutation to it. And that mutation could be anywhere on that spike protein. But the idea here is that when this virus does mutate, that we're able to change that up because we can get a read of that within minutes to be able to mirror what that virus could look like. So when you do get your inoculation, it's being told, hey, when you see this, go attack it. But the fact of the matter is that your body has not seen this type of virus before. It is not used to this type of a thing. And so by the fact that your body's not seen it, it's not giving any instructions on how to go attack it quickly. So you may suffer the consequences of what may come from it, whether it's you or one of your loved ones that you end up giving it to inadvertently. And that's not something that you want to take the risk on doing, but you want to be able to at least find some way to arm yourself, because that's the best thing to do in this war against COVID.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Question for Tulio. For Tulio. Are they currently vaccinating the elderly only, or can young people get vaccinated?
Well, the answer is yes and yes. Right now, when pharmacies were allowed to vaccinate, and it first started, and we've been vaccinating since January, they were originally only allowed to vaccinate anyone older than 65. That was in the pharmacy. But has anybody ever seen the criteria that's given? Anywhere from front-facing hospital workers to emergency workers to front-facing government employees can now get vaccinated, not dependent on their ages. So now pharmacies can do 50 and older and comorbidities, which means having other illnesses that could affect the disease state or to make COVID worse in the patient. And those patients that don't fit that criteria, while they may not be able to get it at a pharmacy, they can get it at a federal qualified clinic or a New York State mass vaccination center. So, and New York State has these different vaccination centers set up at, let's say, SUNY Westchester, the Westchester County Center, and SUNY New Paltz, and different locations that they call pods throughout the state that'll allow those particular patients to get a vaccine. So the answer is yes, older than 18 is for the Moderna vaccine, and older than 16 is for the Pfizer vaccine. But you have to fit those other criteria as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. This one is for Tulio. What percentage of immunity does each vaccine offer, and why is Pfizer not readily available in the community?
Well, the answer is the Pfizer product and the Moderna product have about a 94%, 95% protection quality to them. The Johnson & Johnson product is labeled as a 75% protective quality to it. The only issue is that 75% is from a different population. So they're questioning as to whether that is an adequate comparison. So the first thing is any vaccine that's in your arm is the best vaccine. There's number one. And then number two is the two vaccines that are done through messenger RNA have that 95% number. The Pfizer product has a very difficult storage requirement. It has to be a negative 80-degree freezer that it comes in, and that requires a whole process of systems. My best freezer in my pharmacy goes to negative 40 degrees, not to negative 80 degrees. So just for that alone, I could not dispense or administer the Pfizer vaccine. And also, it comes in a large quantity. When you have to order the Pfizer vaccine, you have to get 1,000 doses. and keep those 1,000 doses in its proper storage requirement. So that could alter or change who is going to get it, including many hospitals may not have that ability to store the vaccine in that requirement. So the Moderna vaccine can be stored in a regular freezer, and the Johnson & Johnson product can be stored in a regular freezer as well.
Okay, great answers, great answers. I think this one, Roger can do this one. How is it possible to get COVID right after getting the vaccine?
It's not so much that, when you get your COVID vaccine, so let's just say you get one of the Pfizer or the Moderna ones, what's happening is after your second one, the first one that you're given, typically it's giving your body that information in terms of what it is it needs to do to build up the antibodies. The second one that you get essentially gives you a little bit of a boost, and what's doing is it's giving your body that instruction again, but now all of a sudden your body is generating an immune response. You're not getting COVID, you are building an immune response or mounting an immune response. And what that basically means, you're feeling tired, you're feeling fatigued, your body is actually having a reaction. You could have a headache, whatever it might be. And what we've typically seen or heard through all of the sources is that it's about 24, 48 hours at most in terms of what you're feeling, but then it goes away. So you've generated that immune response. You are not developing COVID. Now, in terms of whether you can get COVID after that, there's a lot of information to be explored on that, but I think at that point in time, you will have built up enough antibodies in your system that you have the ability to be able to tell your body, hey, now we've got this defense mechanism to be able to go fight the virus in your system that you didn't previously have before. So you aren't really feeling COVID per se. You're just feeling the immune response reaction after the second dose.
Okay, great. Just a comment from me. Yesterday morning, I received my first dose of the Moderna. And right now, I just need to share how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like I'm getting the flu a little bit. It's like when you're coming down with a cold. My body's just kind of lethargic, and I wanted to sleep today in the middle of the day, which I generally don't do. So I took a nap in the middle of the day, and I had a pack of emergency and make sure that I'm drinking water and so on. And I know that it's gonna go away, but I'm not sick. I'm just not feeling the way I feel. I'm talking to you right now, and I just feel like I want to go lay down rather than being here talking to you. And that's exactly what Roger is saying, that's the kind of response you get, which is a sign that your body is building up immunity. All right, so let's move on. How long does it take to build up immunity? How long does it take to build up immunity? And anyone can answer.
I guess I'll take it. Our comments are on the first dose of the vaccine that you end up being at about a 60% protected factor after 14 days. And after you get the second dose of the vaccine, after 14 days after that, you achieve that labeled 94, 95%, at least with the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer as well. The J&J product, since it only hits, we believe, that 75% number, but I'm sure it's after the 2-week time period. Okay. Oh, and one other thing, Bishop, many patients comment about them feeling sick the second day or the first day after their vaccination. And there are a lot of people that are out there that are scared to take Tylenol or anti-fever medicines or any medicine that's going to decrease or make you feel comfortable. And if you do have a low-grade fever, or if you are feeling uncomfortable, taking Tylenol would be totally safe for you to treat this particular reaction to the vaccine. So you do not have to suffer through it. If you have a mild fever, you could also treat with Tylenol as well. And if your arm is sore, you can also use ice at the site of injection to decrease the soreness and possibly the irritation from the injection.
Okay, great.
I just wanted to add one thing just to clarify that it's totally fine to take Advil or Tylenol after for a vaccine reaction, but it's not recommended to take it before the vaccine to prevent one. There is some evidence that that may decrease the efficacy of the vaccine. So wait for side effects, treat them if you get them, but don't try to prevent them except by drinking lots of water, keeping yourself well hydrated. And Roger just shared with us before we were live that electrolyte water is very helpful for that.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that of all the folks that have had their second vaccine that have taken in like either like a Gatorade or something that's got electrolytes in there the day before, because you're putting lots of electrolytes in your body, you'll feel like an electrolyte flush, which will cause some of the fatigue, the tired, the headache, whatever, that you want to take that on the day of just to keep the electrolytes replenished. Anytime that you kind of feel like an immune response is going on, your body is going to be utilizing the fluids in there to help fight off or generate an immune response. And just keep in mind, not everybody will have a reaction. You may have very mild, you may have none, you may have something a bit more than mild, but it doesn't last very long. It's nothing to be scared of. It's not like you've gotten the virus. It's that your immune response is actually working, which is what you want to see.
Okay, wonderful. We are making progress and we are doing very well. To Terry, how can one sign up to get a vaccine?
There are several different places you can sign up. There are pharmacies, including Tulio's Pharmacy. Say the name again. I'm sorry. I live in Croton.
It's okay. Health Smart Pharmacy.
Health
Is my
Smart,
203 Main Street.
Health Smart Pharmacy. Their Open Door is giving vaccines. So you can call Open Door, and there is an email. I think it's hello@opendoorhc.org, opendoorhealthcenter.org, and you can get on their waiting list. There are other pharmacies that are doing it in town. And because of the storage, and because the government controls all of the vaccine allotment, so it's not like your doctor can get it. It's very carefully controlled, and it's going to pharmacies, and it's going to a lot of these state vaccination sites. So you can Google, "Am I eligible New York?" and that will take you to the New York vaccination site. And you just put in your zip code, you answer a bunch of questions, and then it will let you know all of the places nearby. There had been a lot of vaccine shortages, but it is getting better. The county center has one. The Armory in Yonkers has a pop-up clinic. Javits Center has one in New York City. So distribution was really awful at the beginning, and it was really frustrating, but it's getting better and better. The NAACP is actually working with Bishop Whitaker and Pastor Jones and our county executive, Latimer, and we're hoping to get a pop-up clinic in one of the churches. I've been in touch with them. All three of us are relentless. We're sending emails, and it looks like, they don't know for sure. It will probably be the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because it's one and done. It's easier than like going to Health Smart twice is a lot easier than setting up 2 vaccination clinics. But we're working really hard on that. There's also a website called VaxTrax. So really just Google vaccine and 10562 and you can get lots of good information.
Terry, you may want to talk about the COVID Angels too, for those people who are struggling to get. Yeah.
Oh, yes. There's an amazing organization in Ossining called COVID Angels. And I can send the information to Bishop Whitaker. I don't think I have it at my fingertips to put in the chat. If you just Google COVID Angels Ossining, and they are helping people make appointments. They're helping people get to appointments with transportation. And if possible, it's not been super easy. They're helping the homebound get vaccinations in their home. And also Tulio, remarkably, I was blown away. He goes into homes too. So just get your names on a lot of lists, but as soon as you get your vaccine, get your names off all those lists so that, someone can take your spot. We don't want people to, have their names in 5 different places and then vaccine will be left over.
Okay, great. Tulio, how does shut-in people get a home visit from you for the vaccine? Home visit?
All they need to do is call the pharmacy and ask for their special need. Some patients, we actually go out to the car. So we go into the automobile. So I have some patients who are special needs who won't put on a mask and et cetera. So we actually go out to their car, vaccinate them, and then monitor them for the 20 minutes after the vaccine. And then those individuals with the home, if they call the store, we can make arrangements to go. And we're also talking with the Ossining Volunteer Ambulance Corps as far as observing the patients at home too once we vaccinate them. So I guess all of us are working on a program to hit the patients, in addition to the walkers and talkers who come in the building. Those individuals are homebound and can't make it out. And also a comment for the Ossining Angels. There are many people, here we are talking on a Zoom call, that are technology averse. They're scared of gadgetry or telephones, or internet. And there are many people who find it very difficult to make an internet appointment or et cetera. And the COVID Angels really help through that whole process. I think it's whether it's in English or even in Spanish, doesn't really matter. They'll help you work through the process.
Okay, great, wonderful. We're also streaming right now live on Facebook and other social media platforms. So we have questions coming in from out of Ossining everywhere. One question is, how effective is the AstraZeneca vaccine? And Roger could probably take that one.
This is one that I actually don't have a lot of data on that one, unfortunately, so I'm not able to speak to this at this point. I think Tulio may have gotten some updated information, or Terry, so I'm gonna not answer this one only because I don't know the answer. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. So Tulio or Terry?
Yeah, the 3 ones that are available in the U.S. right now are the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson product. The AstraZeneca product, I'm not sure if it's available in the U.S. Certainly, I haven't been able to get a hold of it. And there were some questions about its efficacy in Europe, and there were lots of internet-based questions about that particular product. But at the moment, I don't believe it's available here in the U.S. They're all authorized on what's called an emergency use authorization, and I do not believe that it has an EUA.
And AstraZeneca is used in the UK. They've found it's not as sensitive or as effective against the South African variant. So I don't know if it's going to get an EUA in the US. It doesn't have one now, but it is being used overseas.
Okay, great. Thank you. There's a question that I'm trying to interpret here. The vaccine slows the effect of the virus, and you may not know you have it, then spread it to family without knowing. How do we address that?
So, Terry, I think you probably want to answer that, and I'll probably jump on to what you're going to say. Go ahead. You're on mute.
I mean, that is why we want to get our whole family vaccinated. The research is still being done on if someone who's been vaccinated can have a very mild case of COVID or an asymptomatic case and spread it. And that's why people who haven't been vaccinated, if you have, you should still mask around them, because the possibility exists that you could have a very mild case and spread it. Some good research came, and a study came out just last week that said you are 80% less likely to have a mild asymptomatic case of COVID that you can spread after the vaccine. So it's possible it's 80% less likely. So again, it's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than not being vaccinated.
Okay.
Yeah, and keep in mind, right? So you just, let's just say you just got vaccinated today, and you for some reason or another you have COVID. There's a lot that's still not known about this virus, right? But the fact of the matter is that the respiratory droplets that leave your mouth and nose, and you're within that distance where that virus is picked up by a family member, that family member who is not protected could likely feel the severe effects of COVID, if depending on how strong it is and if there's any comorbidity. So there's some factors that go on in there. So that's why it's important that this isn't something that you take to, well, I just got mine, I should be okay, and everybody else, they don't need to worry. But the fact of the matter is that you want to try to get everybody within your family, an extended family, encouraged to be armed against it, because then it's not likely you're going to pass it to each other and feel the effects of it in the same way. And to what Terry alluded to, if it reduces that instance by like 80%, that's better than what we have today, which is 0%, right? So you don't have anything in your body to tell your immune system and your antibodies to produce antibodies to go attack this virus.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. And there are a couple of questions regarding faith and the vaccine. What do I believe and what do I recommend? And very gently and very diplomatically, I have been telling the members of Whole Wreck Ministries and everyone else in my family that I am recommending that we take the vaccine. Why? I believe, from my point of view, from my perspective, we do not have a conflict between faith and science, because science has its place and faith has its place in our lives. And for me, my faith is paramount. I believe in God, and I believe in a lot of other things that the Bible teaches. Everything that the Bible teaches, I believe is the word of God. But at the same time, we must understand that we are living in a society with people where there's evidence that, other things happen, and scientifically things can be proven. 1 + 1 = 2. Amen. 10 + 10 = 20. And as a result, we have to respect science. We have to respect doctors and scientists and what they're doing and work with them as best as possible. So my recommendation is that we wear our masks and double up on our masks. We do our social distancing. We do what the scientist tells us to do and just cooperate and work with them as best as possible. Here is where I have my pet peeve. I am used to hugging people in church. I am used to laying hands on people and praying for them. And I cannot get to do that right now. And as a result, I feel as if I am not doing my due diligence, what I'm supposed to do. While it's okay to have services and meetings virtually, I personally do not believe that God designed us for us to meet over social media. We are supposed to be together in a room together where we can fellowship, where we bring a song, we bring a psalm, we listen to the word of God, listen to teaching and so on. And it's a better way when we can congregate, when we can come together. And if we want to do that, if we want to congregate, the best way to do it is to make sure that we're all vaccinated. Then we'll be able to hug each other. We can, probably I shouldn't say kiss each other. We do that sometimes on the cheek. Amen. But at the same time, I hope you're understanding what I'm saying. We can come together and we can be close to each other, because as human beings, I believe that God designs us to interact. We're social beings, and we should be able to come together to shake hands or to embrace the way we generally do. So I'm dying to go back to a sense of normalcy. And I know it's going to be a new norm, as we say, but at the same time, I believe that it's important. And from the point of view as a professional librarian, many, many years ago, I was trained and thoroughly trained in terms of information, how to access information, how to classify and catalog information. And what we had to do is to make sure that information is authentic, it's authoritative, meaning that who writes the information? What are other people, trusted and respected people, saying about the information? What are they saying about where the information came from? What's the primary source? And we know that science is a primary source because it's tested in a lab. And so when it comes to information, we need to really sometimes dive a little bit deeper and figure out where did this information came from. Somebody sent me a video and they're saying that there's no coronavirus. It's some kind of technological problem that's going on. It's 5G, for instance. There's no virus. Let's just do some research and find out a little bit more what other people are saying, people that we can trust with information, and then we move on from there. The fact that it's published, or the fact that it's in a video, the fact that it's even done by a doctor, somebody who claimed to be a doctor, or somebody who claimed to be proficient in technology, it does not mean that the information is correct. And so what I am encouraging everyone to do, just do some more research, ask people that you trust and so on. And people do ask me as a pastor. So as a professional librarian, I'm saying that information needs to be verified. We cannot just take something that someone sent to us over WhatsApp and we just run with it and believe that, you know, it's correct or it's factual. So we need to really make sure that we look a little bit closer at the information we are getting. And from a Bible point of view, somebody asked, is it the 666, the coronavirus? Some people may understand what that is. Some people may not. We are talking about eschatological event, mean end time events. All right, things to come. Please do not jump to those kind of conclusions, believing that it's the end of the world. It's indeed not the end of the world. And it's not a 666 situation that we are dealing with. It's a virus. And viruses, as we are told, they are actually housed in animals sometimes, and they jump from animals into humans. And that's what we are dealing with right now, all right? So it's not the end of the world. We know what's going to happen if you're a believer in Christ. We believe in the advent, the second coming of Jesus Christ, and so on. But let's not just take this right now and believe that it's the end of the world, and as a result, I should not take the vaccine, all right? Okay, so we're going to go back to, do we have any more questions, Minister K? Because we're looking to close in a few more minutes. Any more questions?
Few more.
Yes, I see one right here. If someone is COVID positive and symptomatic, what types of treatment are out there? And this is a question for Roger and Tulio. On infusion.
If you're COVID, well, first of all, hopefully you got tested. That's number one. If you're symptomatic, obviously you want to stay home. You want to avoid contact with other people. And I think the important thing is that, you know, if you're starting to experience symptoms, you want to make sure that you're in contact with your healthcare provider, so that they're tracking what kind of symptoms that you're feeling. And your healthcare provider will probably be the best to help guide you through what you can do given where you are now. If you don't want to take a COVID vaccine when you've gotten when you've gotten COVID, it's not going to you're not going to produce antibodies right away. So just consult with your healthcare provider. That is the first and best thing you can do. Stay away from other people. If you have to come in contact with other people, make sure you wear masks. Proper hand washing is absolutely important. But the mask is critical. Mask over your nose and mouth, that is absolutely critical, so you don't spread it around. That's what you want to try to prevent doing. Tulio, I don't know if you want to take it from there.
Well, testing is important. So getting an accurate test in the county of Westchester, a PCR test is always required for a positive diagnosis. A positive quick test is also a positive result, but a negative quick test may not be negative. So it depends on the time at which you take the test. And then the treatments go along just like treating for a regular flu. Wash your hands, sanitize, stay away from other individuals, quarantine, and follow all the guidelines. If you tested positive, I'm sure you're going to receive a phone call from a tracer who's then going to call and go through everything that you've gotten or been every person that you've contacted. You're going to take Tylenol or other medications to treat the immediate illness and contact your healthcare provider. This way you can determine to what level you know to have to go to the emergency room or to a physician? Or can you just treat at home and self-quarantine and treat as that way? Terry, do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah, sure. Research is being done on treatment. So for mild to moderate illness, which is anyone who stays home and recuperates at home without oxygen, we do mostly symptomatic treatment. But there's lots of things to treat the symptoms. If it's in your chest and you're having trouble breathing, your healthcare provider may prescribe an albuterol, an inhaler to open your lungs. Dexamethasone, which is a steroid, is used to treat severe COVID. Remdesivir is another drug, but that's for severe cases. There's a little bit of research, especially in the African American community, that vitamin D, it's not a treatment, but a lot of African Americans are vitamin D deficient, and there's some studies that say vitamin D deficient people are more apt to get COVID. So I recommend to my patients that they find out by a blood test if they're deficient, and they make sure they take vitamin D. Some people find that melatonin can be a little bit helpful with the circadian rhythm, the sleep-wake stuff, because COVID really knocks you out, but these are not cures. There's also monoclonal antibodies and the plasma, the convalescent plasma. Those are two other, but those are really reserved for seriously ill or people who have very severe underlying conditions that make it much more likely for them to be seriously ill.
Okay. Tulio, are you having trouble filling prescriptions for hydrochloroquine?
Well, first of all, for every patient who's been on hydroxychloroquine, and to treat other symptoms other than the COVID, in the state of New York, it was banned to treat patients for COVID with hydroxychloroquine by the governor. So most physicians won't write for hydroxychloroquine. The patients, though, it became in short supply despite that. And those patients who are regularly on hydroxychloroquine, we've been able to fill every single prescription and quarantine the product, meaning isolate it just for them and make sure that they did not miss any of their medication, because it's a tremendously excellent drug to treat a variety of other illnesses other than COVID.
Okay. A question, speak about MAB infusions as treatment for symptoms. Monoclonal antibody treatment. Maybe Terry could take that.
Again, there are criteria that patients need to meet. So some of my patients have had monoclonal antibody treatments and they have found it to be helpful, but it's not a cure and it's really only used in specific circumstances. There's a protocol that patients need to meet all the criteria to use it. But some people have found it to reduce the severity and the length of the illness. It's unfortunately not a cure though.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Kay, do we have more questions? I think we have about 10 minutes to go. If not, I'm going to ask the panelists just to give closing remarks. If there are no more questions, I'm going to ask, starting with Tulio, then Roger, then Terry, just to give closing remarks.
Okay, well, I guess the most important thing is to get vaccinated. Any vaccine is, or the vaccine in your arm is the best vaccine there is. And make sure your family members get vaccinated. Of all the doses that we've had in the pharmacy, we've had no emergency responses necessary, no EpiPens were administered, no violent reactions. We've had some people with sore arms. Most of the reactions are reactions of joy. Everybody is happy to get the shot. They're happy to see me. They're smiling that they get to go see relatives afterwards once they get vaccinated. So in reality, my most important thing is to get out there, get on a list, get vaccinated. And if your friend, family member, or parent needs to get vaccinated, put them on a list and to help them get through the process. It is more anxiety producing than the vaccine, the process of trying to get the vaccine is more anxiety producing than getting the vaccine itself. So just get vaccinated.
Okay, thank you, Tulio. Roger?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand a couple of things. Understand what COVID does to your body. Understand that COVID, this is a new virus that our bodies have not seen before. We do not have the instruction manuals already prescribed in our bodies to be able to fight this virus. You need to understand that having that extra help to help build that arsenal in your immune system is critical, because while, yeah, there's 90 some odd% that actually get over it, you don't want to be part of that. Could be a long hauler. And it's not so much that maybe you might be okay from it, but it's who you end up giving it to that may not be okay with it. It could be your loved one. You want to make sure that you keep your loved ones together. It is important that you understand what's obviously going to be important to you. And if your loved ones is what you're concerned about, if it's you're concerned about, if it's extended members of your family and your friends you want to get together with, get vaccinated. I got vaccinated, and for what it's worth, I am predisposed to diabetes type 2, which runs rampant in my family. I'm a person of color, and I too suffer from any kind of effects of what COVID-19 will be. I went and got my parents vaccinated. They're fully vaccinated. My wife's vaccinated. My brother and sister-in-law are vaccinated, because we want us to get together and be able to celebrate, be able to hug one another, and be able to spend the time together. But until the time that we're there, I don't feel safe. And I think we want to be able to get together as a community again and be able to start to feel a sense of normalcy, whatever that's going to look like, but it should be better than where we are today. To be remote like this today is not going to be a sustainable thing. We are not designed to be people who just live in our own bubbles and can stay apart from one another. We do love one another, and we want to continue to have that interaction. So by all means, look at the science, follow the science. Social media is filled with lots of information that could be misinformation. So make sure that whatever you're looking at, talk to your healthcare practitioners. Don't worry about the fact that this was rushed, because in this case here, there was a lot of science put into this. Think about like what it was like years ago. If someone told you 20 years ago that you'd have a computer in your hand that you could take pictures of, scan things on, and be able to talk to other people on, that you could walk around with anywhere in the world, you would have said they were crazy. But you know what? Guess what? You've got a smartphone, and technology has changed that much too to get vaccines up to where they are. Take that and use that for information for what it's worth, and get yourself to a place where you can protect yourself. And I will leave you with that. God bless you. And I really hope the best for you and your family. God love you all.
Thank you. Yeah.
One thing I forgot to mention, the vaccine is free. Okay, there is no charge for the vaccine. They may need insurance information to file for the administration fee, but out of pocket for any particular patient, even those patients that are uninsured can get the vaccine for free. So there is no charge for the vaccine. So definitely money is not a problem in this scenario.
Good information, because I was wondering why yesterday I had to provide insurance information, because I got mine through Caremount, where my doctor is, and I was wondering why.
The vaccine is free, but the administration, like the needles, the syringes, the time, and all the other stuff, that needs to be billable to the insurance company, but not to the patient.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so Terry, it's your time now. Just share your concluding remarks.
Sure. I think Roger and Tulio said it so well about the science and about how awful the illness is. But I think I'll end with saying, find your why. You know, if you have concerns, research them. Talk to your healthcare provider about them. If someone you love has concerns, listen with empathy. Don't say, oh, you're crazy, go get the vaccine. Listen to what their concerns are. Let them express them. Try to give them some information that will help them minimize those concerns. And, we really do need this vaccine for us, for our loved ones, and to get society back to a place where we can all be together. I think Bishop Whitaker said it most beautifully. We're people that need each other, and these tiny little squares on the computer just don't give us the purpose and the fulfillment. And our hearts aren't filled by that. So we need to get over this virus so that we can go back to loving each other and trying to fix all the problems in this crazy world.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Terry. All right, so my parting words are, I am gently prodding and recommending that we take the vaccine because I want us to be able to socialize again. I love having dinners at my house. I love to entertain, and I want you back in my house. I want you back. I want you back in church, and I want us to get back to a place where we can say we are normal again. All of us have been under psychological duress. I don't think anyone can say that this has not affected them. We did not expect this. It was not prophesied by the prophet, so to speak. You know what I'm talking about, church folks. This thing just jumped on us like that, and our lives became topsy-turvy, just 360-degree. Everything just changed so suddenly. I remember the last Sunday in ORAT Ministries last March, when we literally had to just run for our lives because we did not understand the virus. We just know that people were dying, even in the church as well. And so those of you who have lost loved ones, my prayers are with you. Last week, BOMA, the Briarcliff and Ossining Ministerial Association, last Sunday evening, we had a memorial service in Ossining. And just to say that, we are praying for the families. And so if you have lost anyone that is close to you, whether colleague, friend, family, just know that we are praying for you, and may the presence of God and the peace of God be with you. I want to say thanks for Minister Kay and Pastor Brian for hosting this behind the scenes. And we want to say thank you to Leo, Roger, and Terry for doing such a tremendous job this evening answering our questions. As I said, I'm a little bit foggy. I got the Moderna yesterday morning, and so I'm kind of just trying to be as alert as I can. But God bless you. Thank you so much for coming, for answering our questions, and for providing us with so much information. We're going to be having more of this, of course, in Ossining, because the other pastors, they'll be hosting more information sessions as well. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the evening. And I say shalom, and may the peace of God be with you. Know that we love you. God bless you. And thank you so much, everyone from everywhere that's listening, that has sent in your questions, that have participated in any way. Know that we thank you and we appreciate you. And I'm hoping to see you in church as soon as possible, physically, not the virtual one, physically. All right, Minister Kay, any parting words from you? Thank you so much. All right, bye-bye again. Have a good night. Yes.
This was great. I just want to share on our YouTube, there was a person who was anti-vaccine. She watched, shout outs to Karen Brown, and she said it was very informative. She got the knowledge she needed, and now she's going to get her vaccine.
All right, very good. That's what we wanted. That's what we wanted. Thank you. Congratulations. Awesome. All right. Any closing remarks, Kay?
Actually, if I could, I don't know if we're still streaming, but
I think we're still live.
Okay, we're still live. So for anyone that may be treating at home, that may be isolated in the community because you're treating, at home and you can't really have family in. I'm a nurse myself, a case manager, and just seeing a lot of different scenarios in the community. No, I work for Northwell as well, but I'm not here plugging them, but they do have some great programs. Northwell's CARE program and CROWN program, Northwell Health Solutions, they're in our community, where you could even have all types of specialists that will check in on you through telemed, if you need medications, if you need oxygen, if you need resources that you can't readily get. There are doctors that are in these programs that will provide you that service, and you can call 855-569-4227. That is 569-4227. That's the CARES program. And the Crown program is 516-465-5400. They'll also link you to services in the community.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And if there's nothing else, have a wonderful night again, and God bless you. And Horak Ministries, I will see you in church tomorrow.